ressenti partout.
All right, let's wrap things up with our movie review. Uh, we didn't get to it last week, but this month we do have a theme, which is what is it? What was it, Rob? Rob
Well,
is
yeah.
spearheading this month, so I'll let him
Yeah,
explain.
so we're doing movies from 1939, and 1939 was a revolutionary time in film. Um, I think there was like 6 or 7 movies that were up for Best Picture, nominated for Best Picture that year, and they were on the all-time greatest movies list. What else? One of the movies the movie that we're going to review tonight was on that list. We had, like I said, color was being introduced in film this year, um, and just a lot of just great acting, great stories. Um, new film definitely changed in this year, and I'm was really excited to. I figured it's like this is our longest, one of our longer months, so we get like more cracks at it. So we get about 5 movies, and we've actually done a movie from 1939. We did it, I think, last year was the Roaring Twenties with Humphrey Bogart and what the hell, I forget who the lead actor was in that film. um, and so yeah, so we've already gotten one film from that year down, but the movie we're talking about tonight is one of the greatest films and probably one of the longest films.
Hmm. Where? Where? Huh? Just keep going.
And it's a little bit of a love story. It's a little bit of a drama. It's got a little bit of everything. It's a lot of great acting, and it's you could almost honestly. This is such a long film. I mean, there was at least like 2 or 3 intermissions through the film.
I don't recall that many. I remember there being one intermission, and that was like kind of more or less in the middle. Because again, it was like 2 hours. There were times where there's like kind of like these narrative breaks where it was kind of like explaining what was happening. From what I
Okay, yeah.
remember.
So there was the one intermission with, and then the narratives I think were like act breaks, as far as because it's really, you could almost say it's like what 3 or 4 different stories in one, albeit with the same characters for the most part, and and that's pretty much like the basis of the film. It's pretty much like Scarlett O'Hara, she's a rich, bratty socialite,
Yeah, she's like
who
this,
goes.
petulant Southern belle. She's very popular amongst the men. I mean, not that she was a whore, but she played on their fawning over her. Like there was like that
Right.
scene where there was like this big kind of party going on at this other plantation, and like all the young men, they were like they're fighting over whether or not like who gets her a piece of cake or gets her a glass of punch or what have you.
Yeah, it was.
and so she was kind of the the queen bee, um, of her town, or wherever she grew up. But she just wasn't, but then her heart was really saved for one person. But unfortunately, that he, the guy, he was, his heart was set on somebody else.
Right, and that love triangle kind of was always there throughout the film. It was in
Right.
spanning in the story. It spanned several decades.
Right.
But yeah, she's just that Southern belle that has everything, and after the war has nothing, and she
Mm-hmm.
essentially rebuilds herself and has she comes back to wealth, and it's
Right. Through less than, let's say, less than noble. What's the word I'm looking for? Less than noble means.
yeah.
Because if you know nothing about this movie, then you should know about that one scene where it's like, it's just about, I think it's dawn's about to break, or it's about sunset, and Scarlett, like, pulls out like a carrot or a turnip out of the ground, and like she takes a bite out of it, and it's like so bitter, and she's like, oh, I swear that I'll never go hungry again, whatever it takes, whatever, by any means, I'll never want for nothing. And there's like,
Yeah, they
and
paired.
it's a shot of like her on a hill, and it's like, it's like she's silhouetted, and like with her fist, defiantly in the air, clutching that turnip, promising
Overlooking
herself that
her,
she'll never ever go hungry again.
right, overlooking her land, which is
Yeah,
named Hera.
her barren, desolate land, the land that was destroyed by the war. And admittedly, she starts off pretty well, because she starts replanting the crop and on her land, and because she's dirt poor now, and she has to do everything herself, and like her younger sisters are with her, and they're kind of still kind of bratty, but she kind of like kind of takes the reins, and it's like her father even comes to her and says, hey, why don't you ease up on your sisters, they're doing their best, and she kind of rightly says like, hey, I'm not asking them to do anything that I'm not doing myself, so they can learn to suck it up and get with it.
Yeah, and so I mean that's kind of the gist of like the main story plot. So
Mm-hmm.
and so I figured we can give our thoughts. I there's a lot to unpack with this film.
Yeah.
I The one thing is Scarlett O'Hara to me is she's kind of the villain of the film if you really think about it.
I
She
I was
she
I was thinking that as well. You're
she,
not. Yeah, you
she
weren't alone.
reminds me of Rose from Titanic, where it's like you're not a good person. You're
Yeah,
She's not.
you're kind of a spoiled
And
brat.
well, yeah, and I figure it's like she started off as a spoiler brat, and she had her whole world kind of collapsing around her.
Mm-hmm.
Yet she had her family, she had her land still, and that was kind of the one thing that her dad told her before everything kind of fell apart was that it's like no matter what you lose, like you can have money, you can be poor, but this land is this is a part of you, this is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And after she lost everything, that was really, it was that land, the house was still there, the land was still there, and she kind of she realized that she needed to take over and like kind of care for her family. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
oh
Yeah, her
great, this
mother
is gonna
died,
be
and like her father, he was kind of going senile, or some
and
form of sundowning. So he wasn't really
right.
able to, take control of the family and get them back on their feet. Um, but just in the means in which she goes about like rebuilding her life, rebuilding her family, it's just it's kind of like how maybe, I don't know, Robert, if you would agree, but maybe toxic femininity. she kind of uses her her feminine charms and wiles to advance herself, but not in like the most noblest of ways.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to get to that part here shortly, but like what I initially thought is like, okay, like she starts off this way, she kind of like has a kind of a wake up call and becomes a new character, but that's not the end of the story. She ends up like kind of really collapsing again, and I wonder because there's always this talk of Tara, it's like Tara is what's important, and that's where like and I felt like maybe this is one theory I have is that the further away that she gets from Terra, from her home, her land, or whatever, kind of the shittier she becomes as a person. Um, and that's one
Actually,
possibility.
yeah, actually yes, because Terra in Latin means earth, ground, grounding. So yeah, if the further she got away from her family, her roots, the less grounded she was, and
Right.
more
And
and
so,
more prone to like this opportunistic uh, kind of outlook. Don't react, just keep going.
Not been set up yet. Please. I'm sorry, the person you were.
No, I'm about to.
so her second marriage was essentially that,
Right, yeah,
and
yeah. I mean, yeah, you mentioned the first marriage. Yeah, that was more of a
fuck it kind of thing. It was.
yeah. There wasn't like because the guy that asked her to marry her, it was also kind of
He was a
had to
dweeb.
influence by the war too, because all the men were going off to war, and so like and like the love of her life had just proposed to uh, the love of that man's life. And so, her seeing that, kind of, maybe like, kicked up her envy. And so, like, one of the fawning men, um, one of the fawning young men, because like, hey, I'm gonna go off to war, but I'd really love to marry you. And she's, seeing this and realize like, she'll be the only one not married. So she's like, yeah, sure. And
Yeah, it
like
meant nothing to
and
her.
yeah, and like even when even when she finds out that that her husband has been killed in the war, she doesn't really mourn.
Yeah, she doesn't care.
Yeah, she doesn't care. Like even when she's supposed to be in a state of mourning, she talks her father into allowing her to go to the big city, Atlanta, and to go have fun, or kind of like, oh, I can't be here because there's too many things that remind me of him, so I have to be somewhere where like nothing can remind me of him. But really, it's like I want to go to the city and have fun.
Yeah, it. So yeah, there was that. Her second husband, who I think she felt slightly more remorse for when he died. Um,
Right. Yeah. Because one, he was actually in love with one of her younger sisters, and he had asked Scarlett permission to marry her, but only after he had money or established himself.
right.
And so he goes off and he buys a store, and he run and he's fairly successful. Um, and and then I'm sorry, Scarlet sees this as an opportunity to you know you know what is it latch her wagon onto him because initially she goes to Rhett Butler for help.
Who denied
But
her?
what was that?
Who denied her?
Yeah, who denied her? Who saw through her charms and like what she was doing, what she was really after, and just kind of flat out rejects her, and kind of goes and usurps her sister's I don't know, betrothed or
Well, that's kind of what, yeah,
suitor.
because they
Suitor.
were,
I'm sorry, suitor is the word I was
yeah.
looking for. Yeah, so she kind of usurps her suitor by saying like, oh, she actually got married to some other guy.
Oh yeah, she straight up lied to him.
Yeah, she straight up lies to him, and then and so she then like kind of ingratiates herself to him, and they get married, and she kind of takes over the business, and she starts a lumber business, and she steadily gets back on top. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, uh, or from a certain perspective, Scarlett's the villain of this film.
I think she's a villain. She's a horrible person. Um, and I think it makes me think about we obviously have to talk about Rhett Butler, played by was it Cary
Clark
Grant?
Gable.
Clark Gable. I always mix those two names up. Yeah, Clark
Cary
Gable.
Grant
Who
was in North by Northwest.
right? Um, yeah, I don't I know the difference, but I always flip their names. But anyways, Clark Gable's character, Rhett Butler, who is himself kind of a scallywag, kind of roguish type of character,
Right.
who is no one really likes him. Not even his own family really likes him. Yet,
Right, like even
he's a
in polite society, they he kind of has a reputation, for ruining a young woman from a good family, and mostly people look at him with disdain.
and I think the reason behind that is because everyone else in that movie, including Scarlett, puts on this kind of fake facade.
Yeah, they put on
You know,
everyone except for Rhett Butler, the character of Rhett Butler, puts on airs. They pretend
right?
to be something that they aren't. Whereas Rhett Butler, he's just himself. He's like, this is me. This take me as I am. I'm not a horrible person. But I'm not that good either.
Here's the other thing about Rhett Butler is that not only is he like that himself, but the way about him is he, in a semi polite way, kind of rips off the mask of that facade and everyone else around him.
Mm.
And you see that in how he interacts with Scarlett. It's like, yeah, I see right through you. You're essentially you're full of shit,
Mm-hmm.
and you do all this stuff. You marry all these men you don't love. All this, and for
Yeah, you're
what?
holding. Yeah, you're pining over a guy who, is not gonna be with you.
He called it way back in her when he first met her. It's like, this guy he doesn't love you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going after something that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's like, you're wasting your love on somebody who'll never return it back to you. And it's funny because like it's only like he's the only one that can handle her. That
Yeah,
could put her in her place. And you see that countlessly throughout this film. Um, like when she went to go and talk to Ashley. That's the guy that she loves, by the way, Ashley Wilkes, and like they partner up together, you know, um, reluctantly because she manipulates his wife into making him become partners with her in I think the lumber business.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's a moment like they like because Ashley admitted at one point that he did love her, um, And so, they're in the office together, and and she was like pressing him again, and I think he admits that that there'll always be a part of him that loves her, but that they can't, and like they hug, and then I think it's his mother-in-law and I think sister.
Yeah, they caught them like kind of,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's from 1939, but I think it wasn't just some hug either. Like there was something else going on that we
right,
don't
right, right.
see,
hmm
and it's
And
like, and here's the crazy part is that Ashley's wife, who what's her name again? Um, uh,
Marion, or hold on, let me look it up real fast.
yeah, let me look up her name. But anyways, like who through everything that they went through, because in a lot of ways, her Scarlett and her, throughout everything that happened, stuck together, and it was kind of like she felt that by taking care of her, that Ashley would, all her actions in a lot of ways are to get Ashley. That's all. That's all she cares about.
That's right.
It's
Yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah.
it's to get money and to get Ashley. That's all. That's all. All of her actions can be summed up in those two things. And so, while she like where Ashley's wife is thinking like, "Oh, Scarlett, you're so great. You're like my best friend, and all this. We're almost like sisters." And it's like, yet Scarlett is like, you think it's like, oh God, like Scarlett's really a nasty person, and it's like she Scarlett essentially hates her, yet is only doing anything nice to get to Ashley, to
Right,
kind of pretty much kick her out of the way to get to Ashley, and
right. Yeah, because I mean, like you were saying, like she's only doing it because of her love for Ashley. And
right,
oh yeah, and her it was Melanie.
yeah,
Melanie, yeah. So Melanie,
Melanie.
yeah, and so Scarlett, Ashley charges Scarlett to look after Melanie, and so like because she loves Ashley so much that she agrees, and there's a point where Melanie is pregnant with their child, and it looks like a very dire situation, but she takes care of her, and the child is born, and Melanie even feels like this sense of what is it? She's indebted to Scarlett for kind of taking care of her and and protecting her all this time. And so even that incident where they I think the cousin or the sister and the mom like walk in on them like embracing, and then later that night they have to go to this party hosted by them, but Rhett Butler you know kind of being a man's man. It's kind of funny. I really like the character of Rhett Butler.
Oh, he's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
He's my favorite character in the show.
He makes Scarlet dress in like this kind of I guess for 1860 like this kind of slutty dress, and
Yeah.
and then like and make her go into this party, but he makes her go in alone. He walks through the door. It's like, oh well, have
You're
fun.
on your own.
Yeah, you're on your own. And so what happens, like she comes in, and Melanie immediately comes and greets her, and introduces her to the rest of the party. you know um,
And the thing is, I think she knows. That's the crazy part about everything.
yeah, and I think and I think that's the test. That's the two, like, yeah. So Melanie's the counterpoint to Scarlet, where Scarlet is mostly selfishly motivated and all about what she wants and her needs and what have you. Melanie is someone who is selfless, and who is willing to forgive, um, and willing to forgo or overlook somebody's shortcomings.
and
But also, I
and
think
she
but I think because like she does still love Scarlet, even in like a weird sort of way.
I think because a lot of it is because everything that they've gone through, and I think even though she knows that Scarlett is a very selfish person,
Hmm.
she still did those things. She still
Hmm.
helped her out. She still
Right? Yeah. Like
her child is alive because Scarlett was the one there to kind of help get her through the chaos. And I think so. Even though like she knows that Scarlett's kind of a not a good person,
hmm
she still feels like yeah, but you know anyone else like there's maybe she saw like maybe a glimmer of her kindness. It's like because if you're really truly selfish, he would have did he she would have ditched her, um, and I don't know. Melly was such a kind-hearted person that yeah she is the counter to Scarlett O'Hara.
hmm
So she everything that Melly does is selfless. She always is thinking of everyone else but herself.
Right. I mean, even at the end when what is it? When Rhett and Scarlet child dies in the horse riding accident, it's her who's who's looking after Scarlet and like the and her house and her household, and to the point where she like exhausts herself to death.
Yeah, and it's just well, it's like the line from Rhett was that it's like, yeah, her she was always like willing, but her body was weak. Whereas like you're always strong willed, but you you have no or it's like you have a strong body, but you have no will. Like you just give in to your
Right. So
desires.
right. So in that way, they were they were mirror images of each other.
Yeah. Um. What other thoughts do you have about the movie, Andy? Was there anything? Yeah. What about Rhett Butler? Did you like the obviously because you said you liked him probably the best. Like
Yeah,
what
I mean,
else?
I thought this movie was great. The writing too was really surprising. There was like that
It,
great line. There's that great line from Rhett when he I think the first time he met Scarlett, and he was saying like, oh, you're a woman who should be kissed often and by someone and from someone who knows how. I was like, damn, that is like that is the most pimp line ever.
yes, I forgot about that for a second. Yeah, that was a great line. Um, yeah, the writing. Here's the thing. Yes, it was a very long movie,
Mm-hmm.
but it starts off a little slow. But
Mm-hmm.
as time went on, it's like the writing and the acting was so good that I was just invested. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was really great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, Rhett had all these like great lines and was definitely like the wisest guy that like kind of he broke through everyone's fakeness and
Yeah.
he was kind of yeah like he's that roguish guy but and you could see maybe say that his actions were kind of maybe he was a jerk but like I think he was one of outside of Melly like I think he was actually the only one that really gave a damn about anyone and um, he was the only one that I think um, that could tame Scarlet yet also um, see through her and um, although this movie does not end on a happy note to be
Mm-hmm.
honest it it's not the happily ever after um, obviously from the famous end line of frankly my dear I don't give a damn
Mm-hmm.
pretty much telling her to go fuck
Right,
off.
yeah, like when Scarlet like finally realizes, oh, I really do love you. It's like, well,
It's like it was too late.
tough titties.
Yeah, yeah, it's like all I've done because they were married for quite a long time actually.
I
um
mean, the kid was like at the probably the oldest, like 7, so they were at least married for 7 years,
yeah, if not longer.
if not longer. I mean, yeah, because like at the least 7 because the kid is 7, so they have to be married for at least that long. Let's
You're
let's
right.
let's say let's call it an even 10.
That's what I was thinking. It's probably about 10 because
Yeah, let's call it needing
and
10.
once like Rhett like says like, all right, well, he kind of manned his way into like Scarlett's life, that finally like she gave in to him.
Hmm.
And all he did was he catered to her. He gave her what she wanted, and loved her the way that she wanted to be loved. That she, I think, maybe that he thought the way that she hoped that Ashley would have.
Hmm.
Yet, when given that temptation to for like Ashley to come back in their life, she went right back to her old ways, and that's when he realized like, oh crap. Yeah, and that's kind of like where their relationship broke down, because he realized that she was never going to change.
Hmm.
And well, the other thing was like, but then they had their daughter, and
Hmm.
he realized that like, okay, well, maybe um, Scarlett, I can't change Scarlett, but through my daughter, I can, because she was the another embodiment of Scarlett. It's like, well, I can pour my love into this person
Hmm.
and kind of mold her and kind of teach her. She can be like a better hybrid of like her mom, not obviously for a sexual purpose, but like it was more of the how a father loves a daughter,
Right.
and he
Yeah,
loves
because
he loves
his desire was to always provide like the best for her daughter, like even having a better standing within society, and like when they were on that walk with the baby, and like he would always greet the women of the neighborhood,
right.
to try to ingratiate himself to them, so like they'll look favorably on their daughter.
Exactly. So she wouldn't be an outcast like Scarlet or
He
Rhett.
was, yeah.
Um, and yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
was
wasn't it
just
fun? Like I thought it was hilarious that there's that that scene where Scarlett's drunk and she's flying off the handle, and like Rhett like really had to like lay down the law, and and it's like and then like the next like in the morning she's like waking up with a big grin on her face. It's like, man, she just needed some good dick.
And the other
Right, and
crazy
like it
thing
totally like
is,
changed. I forget like why she was upset, and like why she was drinking, but I think I'm pretty sure it was due to some sort of selfish motivation or something not necessarily going her way, and so she felt like she was entitled to something, and so Brett's like, oh, you insolent child, and like kind of disciplines her.
yeah. Oh man. So yeah, it's a great movie. There's hell, we could spend a couple hours just really breaking this movie down, to be
Yeah,
honest.
no doubt, no doubt. But yeah, I think
Um,
yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about with the film that you remember?
No, because I mean, no. Other than like some like uh, some acting choices, like particularly of that one slave girl. Man, she was so annoying. I wanted to smack her.
Oh God, her voice was ridiculously annoying.
It was ridiculously high. And it's like, and she was like utterly useless because like the reason why she stayed with Scarlett and Melanie was because she like the doctor was like the Union Army was making its way into Atlanta, and like the doctor was make, getting out of Dodge. But
Right.
because of Melanie and her condition, she couldn't be moved, and so like that slave girl is like saying like, oh, I know tons about babies. I could birth the baby. And then like when the time came, it's like, I just said that I don't know anything about babies. It's like, and like Scarlett like gives her a fresh one, and
That's the punch. Yeah.
I was like, you lying bitch.
On the opposite end of that spectrum is was Mammy,
Oh
who
yeah.
was she was great. I
Oh
loved
yeah,
her character.
absolutely. Yeah, I completely understand why now she got the Oscar back then.
Yeah, I mean, she was well, the acting performance is great, but like she was really the her character. She was kind of the because I don't think we ever because Scarlett's mother dies fairly early on in the film.
I mean,
You know,
not early on,
Scarlett's
but yeah,
well as
more
far
or
as like
less, Mammy is the actual mother figure in this movie.
right, and and that's well, that was uh, so yeah, Mammy is really her, in a lot of ways her mom because Scarlett and her mother seem very distant and obviously like at a very early age in Scarlett's life. I think because she died, she tried to get back to Tara, and then like found out that her mom
Right.
had
I mean,
died.
I mean, not to be too disparaging, because one of the drives was for her to go back to her mother, but maybe kind of reading between the lines here, like maybe that really meant Mammy.
That could have been too.
Yeah,
The
but
other
I
thing
mean,
too,
I mean, it's not explicitly say, and we got. I guess we should take into the context of the time. So, maybe she really did love her mother that much, her biological mother, and and
but in
maybe
a
she.
lot of ways that like while she was acted very sassily towards Mammy,
Mhm.
um, you obviously like Mammy stuck around like and
Right. Yeah. So yeah, she really cared for Scarlett and her sisters.
yeah. And the other thing that um, I was wondering too is um, what was it? No, I was saying is like with the fact that when Scarlett and Rhett were kind of strolling their daughter along and all that stuff, it's like, and Scarlett was like, "This is so ridiculous and embarrassing." It's like, why are we doing this? It's like, I think part of that was having it's like, well, we should have somebody else be doing this, not us going down the
Ah,
street.
right. Yeah, because they were rich and balling. So it's like, oh, why don't we just have, why don't we just have, hire someone to do this? It's like,
Yeah, and it's like, well, Rhett was trying to like kind of recreate a better standing in society as we discussed. But I think Scarlett kind of saw like the old way of doing things, where it's like her mom probably didn't like stroll her around. It was probably you know Mammy
mm-hmm,
that did that for her, and it's like
mm-hmm,
oh I should it should be the same way for us. Like why are we doing this? Is a waste of time.
mm-hmm.
And but yeah, yeah. Outside of that one girl. It was like yeah, the great great acting. Um,
Or maybe I should say, like, it was great acting because it made me feel like it actually made me feel genuine dislike for this
hatred.
character.
That's well, she. Oh, I mean, she was kind of like only looking out for herself too, because it was the only reason like she said what she said is so that she could stick with Scarlett and hope she knew that that was her best chance of survival.
mm.
Oh, actually, I don't know jack shit. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah. It's like you're as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop.
Yeah.
Um, what is it? Yeah, but ultimately, yeah, I didn't really like the character of Scarlet, especially at the end when Rhett leaves her, and then she utters what I think what in my opinion is the stupidest line ever, which is "Tomorrow's another day." Because she says like she's gonna get Rhett back. It's like, well, tomorrow's another day. I was like,
I think that maybe she thinks that there's still like maybe like oh Rhett's really mad right now. He doesn't want to listen to what I had to say. I'll go back to Tara. I'll regroup and maybe make a run at him again. Um, I that's kind of what maybe I thought about that. Like oh I'll try it again tomorrow. Because if anything, she is kind of a resilient person. I mean, hell, like she chased after Ashley for what? How many years? Only to realize that it was all BS to do that. Um, And when she wants what she wants, she goes after it with all her resolve. I'll say that about her. As much as I hate her, it's like I'll give her that. And so maybe
Okay,
she thought like tomorrow is another day. I can, I'll regroup. We'll do it again tomorrow.
I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I can give her credit for being a very resilient character. Um, I don't know, but
But she,
it's not. But like I don't know, for some reason that line, delivering that line as it was delivered at the end, it seems so like tone deaf and vapid.
well, I mean, her whole life that's essentially Scarlett O'Hara. So it was in it's
I
her
mean, yeah,
character.
because it's like you treat a guy like shit. You marry him under dubious terms, and then you're surprised that he decides to leave you.
Yeah, like I said, it's Scarlett O'Hara. It's consistent with her character.
I
She
guess.
essentially, like in a lot of, if you really think about it, nothing about her changes throughout the entire film.
I
She's
think. Well, okay. Then that's what
she's the
really kind
quintessential
of
villain.
annoys me. I
Well,
think
I would say
because there's very little character growth for her.
she's the quintessential villain.
Yeah.
We don't
And
care
I think
about
that
that.
yeah, and I think that's what like bothered me about it because even though she's the main character and like supposedly the heroine of this movie, she's more the villain. And there's like and then she doesn't have any real character growth.
And despite the fact that everything, um, all the other characters who cared about her, loved her, wanted to be with her, um, men or women, as far as like they wanted to be around her and cared about her. The only person that she cared about was herself, and she would do whatever it took. She would lie, cheat, steal, do whatever it took to
She killed a guy.
care for herself. Yeah, and that's like I said, she people around her died in droves or ran away in droves because of her. She's she's the villain of the film.
Yeah.
She how many lives did
That's
she
probably
ruin in that film?
that's probably what was bugging me about
Because think of
about
it,
Scarlett's character. It's like even though she's the main character, she's not the hero. She's the villain. And now that I have that perspective, it's like okay, cool. Now I can move on.
she ruined the lives of at least five, what, maybe six people.
Right? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, her second husband literally went out to defend her honor and got killed for it.
Yeah, and she didn't give two shits about him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she felt some
And
remorse, but
the remorse was that it's like I should have just let him marry my sister. He'd still be
right.
alive.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Okay.
she ruined Rhett's life. She ruined Melly. She ruined her first two husbands.
Yeah,
It's just,
Charles and what's his face? Something Kennedy.
yeah, she ruined Ashley's life.
Mm.
Oh, and the other thing we didn't talk about is like she had that prison slave labor that helping out at the lumber mill.
Oh yeah,
All those people's lives. We just I was just washed over. It's like,
that's right. Yeah, it's like if you want to use darkies, we can hire some. It's like, but not this. Ashley was kind of like the voice of reason. It's like, oh, we shouldn't be exploiting, prisoners. But that's what they were doing. They were just going to the jailhouses and picking up inmates who just so happen to be black. Um, so again, they were essentially using slave labor.
yeah,
Frank Kennedy, that's what it was.
yeah.
But yeah, so Yeah, so Scarlett O'Hara is the villain of the story.
She's a nasty piece of work.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's all I had to say about this movie.
Yeah.
You, Robert? Any final thoughts?
Well, the thing I liked about it too is seeing all the tropes that from this film that we hear about in everyday culture. Like the last line is very famous from Rhett Butler. Like, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Mm-hmm.
This the couple scenes of the silhouette of Scarlet, at the end, and then like just before the intermission,
Mm-hmm.
that silhouette. They used
Yeah.
that in I think it was season 2 of The Simpsons with the episode called Principal Charming. Is at the end of the episode, um, Principal Skinner yells out, "It's like because tomorrow is another school day."
Oh,
That's
that's right.
from
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a
yeah,
trope off of
yeah.
this. Um, um, and they even like made fun of the ending. It was I think it was season I want to say like season 9 or 10, where uh, Bart and Lisa are at the old folks' home, like caring for Grandpa and his
Oh,
friends,
yeah, and they
and
find the
and, and they have the edited for old people ending of Gone with the
yeah,
Wind, where it's like,
yeah,
frankly, my dear, I think we should get married.
yeah. And I love you. Uh, Even though technically at that time they were still married,
That's true.
but
Yeah.
anyway, all right, okay, so that's our review. Now for our ratings, Robert, what do you give this movie?
I'm gonna give it. Oh, actually, before we do that, what was the ranking of this film on the AFI Top 100 list? Was it? I think it was what, third?
Uh, Give me a second to look that up.
So I want to see if you think it's worth its ranking in this in that list.
Okay, let's see. It's actually sixth.
Oh, it was sixth.
Yeah.
Well, I know like it's usually Citizen Kane, Casablanca. What's before this film?
Okay. Well, let me read off the ones just before Gone with the Wind. Citizen
Okay,
Kane, The Godfather, Casablanca, Raging Bull, Singing in the Rain.
Singing in the Rain. Really?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Godfather is number two.
Oh, that's well that I okay.
Yeah.
I
Casablanca
can't
is
argue.
three. Raging
That should
Bull
be
is
number 1.
four. Singing in the Rain is five.
I don't think I've seen Raging Bull.
I don't think I have either. At least not fully.
But wow, Singing in the Rain. Really,
Hey,
that's
it's a good movie,
interesting.
man.
Um, I guess it deserves a rank number 6. I thought it was higher than that.
At least
Um,
it's in the top 10.
True. Yeah. I'm gonna get well my rating though. I'm gonna give it I'm gonna give it a 4.
Okay.
Um, like I said, it's a little long. I'll give it that. Scarlet, she's the heroine, but she's really the villain. But it has great acting, great characters. It's it's got a lot going for it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually when I watched the film, I watched this with my girlfriend. We did kind of a teledate kind of thing, so we were watching it together. Um,
What'd she
and
think of it?
she really liked it a lot. She'd never seen it. She's like, "Oh wow, this is 4 hours." It's like, yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. But no, yeah, we both enjoyed it. Yeah, it's definitely worth a 4. I would even almost be willing to go to a 4.5 actually. But
I don't know about
I'll
that,
say
but
4. I say I could be pushed to 4.5, but I would say 4 is solid for
For
me.
me personally, yeah, if it said it was like more than 4 hours, I'd be like, shh, see you. Maybe when I'm old and have nothing to do.
You can watch the edited for old people's version.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I think again, I think this is where we're another example of our synchronicity, but I'm gonna give it a 4 also. Um, just for like some of the reasons that you said. I think also the costuming and the production design was great, as well as the writing.
That's where I think like I would probably add a half star just because the set design was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
The costumes and the set design was great.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it was very immersive. Like I was transported.
I felt like I was there.
Yeah, like I really felt I was in the antebellum South.
Yeah, well, Fiddle D, Andy.
Yeah,
We
Italy
both
D.
agreed.
Good callback. All right, well, there you have it. That's our review. That's our ranking. Both Robin and I give this a 4. It is number 6 on the AFI Top 100. I think I can speak for Robert when I say definitely go and watch this, but do carve out a good chunk of time for it because it is 4 hours long.
Yeah, it's just think of it. It's a night at the theater. It's like, and you got an
think of it as
intermission.
get dressed up, get your lady, get dressed up in your finest fare, and go and watch this thing. And then when the intermission comes up, you can get up and you can go to the kitchen or stretch or go to the bathroom or what have you. It'll be great. It's an entire experience. So treat, like as Robert said, treat it like it's a night at the movies or at the theater.